District Commission, Board of Directors, and the Sacramento-Yolo Port Financing Corporation, March 4th, 2015 meeting. Let's see, to get started. The commission did meet in closed session. Action was taken. So, Mr.
Yes,
Mitchell,
thank you,
you'll
Mr.
report out.
Chair. The commission met in closed session on a matter of real property to approve a donation agreement for the Stone Lock property. It was a unanimous vote. The substance of the donation agreement, the existing option agreement to purchase the Stone Lock property will be assigned by Stone Lock District Holding LLC to the port. The port will obtain a development agreement with the city and will complete the purchase of the property this calendar year. Stone Lock District Holding will pay $20,000 to the port to defray the cost of obtaining the development agreement, and there will be mutual release of all claims by each party.
Right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. So to begin, Commissioner Ledesma, if you'll lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So there are presentations by the public on matters that are within the jurisdiction, subject matter of the commission. There's nobody here to speak on that item. So moving on to items 2 and 3, which is the consent agenda. Anybody pull anything off, or we have any questions on the consent? Anybody have any questions about any of the items on consent? Seeing none, we're looking for a motion.
So moved. I'll second.
So motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So item 4 under regular agenda is consideration of real property exchange with the State of California Department of Water Resources. That's Mr. Toft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commission. The properties involved in this proposed exchange with DWR, Department of Water Resources, are underutilized assets on both sides. The port properties on Prospect and Decker Islands are unproductive in terms of revenue generation to the port and are not required for dredge spoil placement. As mitigation acreage, these lands are raw, and the port does not have the ability to develop them to finished habitat. The 2013 Port Business Plan recommended that these properties be developed or sold for their highest and best use as aquatic habitat, and that's exactly what DWR would do, putting these lands to productive use that will enhance the Delta ecosystem. The DWR property involved in the exchange at 4300 West Capitol Avenue is also currently underutilized. The property is really an ideal corporation yard site, which, if developed by the city of West Sacramento, would activate the site to a higher and better use and provide the city with a location for its parks and public works operations for decades to come. If subsequently transferred to the city at market value, the port would reduce over 75% of its debt to the city and improve its cash flow position through reduction of debt service payments, thereby fulfilling substantially the debt reduction strategy in the Port Business Plan. The estimated cash payment in this deal of $125,000 is subject to adjustment. We think that it will get adjusted down to about half of that. That's based on final survey of the acreages involved on Prospect and Decker. Looks like the surveys are coming out a little bit more in our favor. And this cash outlay would be paid through existing port reserves. And we would largely replenish that through the lease revenue generated from the existing 2 leases, which we would inherit on the 4300 West Capitol property. Finally, the exchange would allow the city to significantly and proactively take a deindustrialization step in Pioneer Bluff, where the city's current corporation yard is located. So finally, in closing, staff's perspective on this is that it's a win-win-win for City Port, DWR, and if the commission moves forward with staff's recommendation this evening, we would return to the commission probably in April or May, hopefully by the May meeting, with final documents for your consideration. And with that, I'll conclude and turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Toff. Are there any questions, comments? Commissioner Capaldi?
Yeah, this is in the primary zone, so is our action on this subject to the review and, I guess, theoretical reversal by the Delta Stewardship Council?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming that DWR would take care of that if that were required. I think their activities are well-known by the Delta Stewardship Council, and they would support the action, but I really don't know.
Yeah, we haven't had to deal with it, as far as I know, we haven't had to deal with this question in reality. We did a lot when the law was passed, but about whether, because what the provision of the Stewardship Act that applies to us is distinct from the provisions that apply to DWR, so it's our action as a Port Commission that is reversible by the Stewardship Council, but it's not an affirmative approval that's required by the Stewardship Council, and I don't know whether the council's ever issued some time period under which it has the right to interfere. So I don't expect that it would be an issue, but this is the first test for us. I'm sure, but there have been plenty of other tests for the council, the Stewardship Council. But it's the first test for us, I think, of what that means in terms of timing. Whether we have to allot a certain amount of time for the potential review and action by the Stewardship Council or not. So not urgent, but I'm just curious whether, is this?
I'll certainly inquire as we continue conversations with DWR.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions, comments? I think staff's looking for some direction or some guidance, right? Yeah.
Or motion, right?
Or a motion to
Yeah.
move, yeah, a motion to,
I'll move recommended action.
all right, so we have a motion on the table.
I'll second.
Second by Ledesma. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed, right? We're moving forward. So motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's see, that takes care of our regular agenda. So we have commission reports. No reports, anybody? No, nothing to report?
Yeah, well, if nobody else does, so the commission and the port hosted the administrator for the Small Business Administration,
Yeah, that's right.
which is not an insignificant deal. She's a member of the President's Cabinet, and she came to hear more about the port and to have a conversation with us about the port as a driver of exports and imports and the pending trade agreements with Europe and within the Pacific region as well. And so the Commission was well represented at that session, but I think that marks the third or fourth cabinet official and U.S. Senator and both the U.S. senators who have been to our port district to see it. So it was and she was impressed, I think, with the work that's happening at the port and learned a lot about the role of inland ports and the role of agriculture in the global trade system that the U.S. is trying to curate. So.
Right, all right, let's see, Port CO report? No report? All right, so that wraps it up. We're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.